Caroline Spencer stepped from the private flight, her heels clicking briskly on the tarmac as the Los Angeles skyline loomed in the background. The city hadn't changed much in the years she'd been away, but she did. The formerly bright-eyed, optimistic designer had become a woman hardened by time, betrayal, and the weight of secrets she'd carried across continents. Her return to Forrester Creations was more than just a homecoming. It was a reckoning. And at the center of it all was Bill Spencer, the guy who had once held her heart and then crushed it without hesitation. The air was thick with the aroma of jet fuel and possibilities as Caroline adjusted her sunglasses, her jaw set with determination. She hadn't told anyone she was coming back, not Ridge, Brooke, or Bill. The element of surprise was her weapon, and she planned to use it precisely. Her phone buzzed in her purse with a message from her mother, Karen, imploring her to rethink. "He's not worth it," the text stated. Caroline disregarded it. This was not about value, it was about closure. The journey to Forrester Creations was a flurry of palm trees and memories. Caroline's mind raced as she recalled the last time she had seen Bill. It had happened in New York years ago, before she moved for Europe to rebuild her life. He'd stood there with swagger and charm, offering her the world, but his eyes told the truth. He'd already gone on. The betrayal had cut harder than she had previously admitted, and the pain had festered, propelling her change. She wasn't the innocent girl who used to hang on his every word. She was a power now, and Bill Spencer was going to realize it. The Forrester Creations building loomed ahead, its sleek glass exterior reflecting the California sunshine. Caroline got out of the car, straightening her fitted blazer and squaring her shoulders. The foyer was just as she remembered it. Polished marble floors, racks of couture designs, and the hum of creative anarchy. Employees looked her way, some recognizing her, others too new to know her background. She made her way to the executive floor without pausing to welcome anyone, her attention unwavering. The elevator ride felt forever, with each ding of the floors bringing her closer to the confrontation she planned for years. Caroline hurried by the receptionist, who barely had time to stammer a welcome before Caroline entered the CEO's office. But it wasn't Ridge or Eric at the desk, it was Bill. He looked up from his laptop, his piercing blue eyes fixed on hers. For a brief period, time appeared to stand still. The years had not blunted his edge. Rather, they had sharpened it. His clothing was perfectly fitted, and his hair remained dark with a tinge of silver at the temples. But the sneer on his lips was the identical one she'd seen in her fantasies. "Caroline," he said, his voice soft like whiskey. "This is a surprise." She responded, her tone chilly. She closed the door behind her, and the click echoed throughout the room like a gunshot. "Did you know I'd be back eventually?" Bill leaned back in his chair, his gaze appraising her as if she were a commercial transaction he wanted to complete. "I hear you're doing well in Paris. The fashion empire has taken on fresh life. What brings you back into the chaos?" "You," she replied simply, coming closer to the desk. "You are the anarchy, Bill. You always have been." His sneer faltered for a moment, but it was enough to tell her she had hit a nerve. Good. She wanted him to be upset. She wanted him to feel the same way she did all those years ago. Blindsided, raw, and completely exposed. "Let's not play games," she said, her voice firm despite the storm within her. "I understand what you did. The lies, the machinations, and how you exploited me to achieve what you wanted from Forrester Creations. And then you cast me aside as if I were nothing." Bill's eyebrows furrowed, but he did not interrupt. He was too intelligent for that. He knew when to let people talk themselves out or into a corner. But Caroline was not here to unravel. She was here to seize control. "I rebuilt myself," she explained, her voice rising slightly. "I established a name for myself in Europe, distant from you and your games. But I've never forgotten, Bill. I'll never forget how you made me feel worthless. And now I'm back, and I'm not going anywhere until you answer for it." He stood, rounding the desk with the steady, methodical grace of a predator. "Do you think you can just come in here and demand answers? Do you think you are the only one who has gone through hell?" His voice was low and threatening, yet it also carried a hint of sorrow. Perhaps that's exactly what she wanted to hear. "Don't you dare play the victim," she said, moving closer until they were inches away. "You can't alter history. You manipulated me, Bill. You made me believe you loved me, and then you turned around and… So what? He cut in, his tone sharper now. Caroline, what do you think I did? Yes, I made mistakes. I am not flawless. But you walked away. You decided to go. I left because you offered me no reason to stay. Her comments rang across the room, and for a brief period, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with unspoken truths, years of unresolved anguish looming like a storm. Bill's jaw tightened and he turned aside, his gaze fixed on the skyline beyond the window. You don't know the whole story, he finally stated, his voice becoming softer. You never did. Then tell me, she shouted, her hands balling into fists by her sides. Tell me why you led me to feel we had a future just to abandon it all. Tell me why you made me believe it was my fault. He returned to her, his gaze probing hers. For the first time she noticed anything resembling vulnerability in them, but she refused to let it influence her. She had fell for his charm before. Never again. It wasn't about you, he finally explained, his voice raspy. It was never a question of you not being enough. It was about me and the decisions I made to protect what was important. She shot back. Your empire? Your ego? Or was it simply easier to let me go than to face the mess you'd created? He did not respond right away, and his quiet spoke volumes. Caroline felt a twinge of something she couldn't identify. Anger? Definitely. But also a flash of an old need she'd buried deep. She hated herself for it, and she despised the fact that he could still get under her skin despite everything. I made choices I'm not proud of, he finally said, edging closer. But I have never stopped caring about you, Caroline. Not for a second. Her chuckle was shrill and unpleasant. Do you expect me to believe that? After everything? Bill, you don't get to remake the past. You can't stand there and pretend you're the hero of this story. I'm not claiming to be anything, he answered, his voice rising. Do you want the truth? Fine. I let you go because I believed it was best for you. I believed you deserved better than a man like me, who would lure you into the life I lead. The bargains, the enemies, the never-ending battle to stay on top. Caroline, you were too nice for that. You're still there. Her breath caught and she wasn't sure what to say. Was he serious? Or was this simply another ruse? Another attempt to deflect her rage and keep her off balance? She searched his face for a falsehood, but all she saw was a tired man, weighed down by his own actions. That's not good enough, she finally stated, her voice quivering. You do not get to decide what is best for me. You don't get to crush my heart and then call it a favor. I know, he murmured, the rawness in his voice taking her by surprise. I acknowledge that I made a mistake, but I am not the same man I was then. And you're not the same lady. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was mistaken, that she was still the Caroline who had given him everything she had. But she couldn't, because he was correct. She wasn't that lady anymore. She had erected barriers around her heart, hardened in the fires of betrayal and loss. And yet, standing here, face to face with the man who had crushed her heart, those walls felt perilously near to breaking. What do you want from me, Caroline? He inquired, his tone gentler now. You returned for a reason. Tell me what it is. She took a big breath to calm herself. I want you to admit it, she explained. Accept that you used me. Admit you lied. And then I want you to know what it's like to lose something you care about. His eyes hardened, and she wondered if he was going to disagree. Instead he nodded slowly and deliberately. I used you, he whispered, the words hanging in the air. I lied to you. And I've regretted it every day since. Although the admission should have felt like a victory, it didn't. It felt like a raw, agonizing wound reopening. Caroline glanced away, unwilling to look at him, her hands trembling as she struggled to remain calm. You don't get to do this, she murmured, her voice barely audible. You don't get to say you're sorry and expect it to fix everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he replied, moving in closer. She could feel the heat from him, the pull of his presence, and it took all in her not to back away. I'm just asking you to hear me out. She turned to face him, her eyes burning. Why should I? Why should I give you anything given what you did? Because you're here, he answered simply. You could have stayed in Paris. You may have moved on. But you didn't. You came back. And I believe it's because deep down you know there's still something between us. Her heart hammered in her chest, and she despised how accurate he was. She had told herself that this was about getting closure and making him pay for his actions. But standing here, inches from him, she couldn't deny the attraction she still felt. It wasn't love, not anymore. But it was something, a thread that refused to snap no matter how hard she tried to cut it. "There's nothing between us," she murmured, but the words rang hollow even for her. "Not anymore." "So why are you shaking?" he inquired, his voice quiet and almost gentle. He reached out and touched her arm, causing her to flinch and take a step back. "Don't," she cautioned, her tone stern. "Don't touch me." He lowered his hand, but his gaze never left her. "I am not the enemy, Caroline. I never was." "You were terrible," she exclaimed, her voice shaking. "You were the one I trusted." The room fell silent again, the weight of her words resting between them. Caroline noticed something like shame in Bill's eyes for the first time. He didn't move or say anything. But that wasn't enough. It would never be sufficient. "I'm not here to fix things," she continued, her tone firmer now. "I'm coming to take back what is mine. My name, my heritage, and my role at Forrester Creations. And if you get in my way, Bill, I vow I'll burn it all down before I let you win again." He looked at her for a long time before nodding, a slight smile tugging on his lips. "There's the Caroline I remember," he blurted out. "The fighter." She did not react, instead turning and walking toward the door. Her hand was on the doorknob when his voice halted her. "This isn't over," he added, his tone indicating a challenge. "You understand that, don't you?" She did not turn around. "It's over when I say it's over," she said, before opening the door and walking away. As Caroline made her way back to the elevator, the hallway was silent, with only a distant murmur from the office. Her heart was racing, and her head was a jumble of feelings she couldn't untangle. She came here to confront Bill and make him realize the misery he had caused her. Instead, she felt more uncomfortable than ever. His words reverberated in her mind. "I never stopped caring about you," and she despised how they lingered, making her doubt everything she'd built her new life on. As the elevator doors closed, she leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. This was only the beginning. Bill Spencer was not a man who gave up, and neither was she. Whatever happened next, she'd be prepared. She needed to be. Back in the office, Bill remained still, staring at the door Caroline had just passed through. His fists were clenched at his sides and his jaw tightened. He knew she may return one day, but he wasn't expecting the fire in her eyes or the intensity in her voice. She wasn't the same woman he'd known years before. She was something else entirely, dangerous. He fell back into his chair, his thoughts whirling. Caroline felt she could take him down, but she had no idea what he'd been through since she left. Deals, betrayals, and adversaries circling like vultures. He'd fought tooth and nail to keep his kingdom intact, and he wasn't about to allow anyone, including Caroline, bring it down. But when he looked out at the metropolis, a small part of him wondered if she was correct. If he had lost something more significant than power by letting her go. And maybe there was still time to set things right. The game had just begun, and neither of them intended to lose. Caroline's homecoming caused shockwaves across Forrester Creations. By the following morning, the news had spread like wildfire. Employees whispered in the design studios, speculating on why she came returning and what this meant for the organization. Rich Forrester, now co-CEO, was taken aback when he heard. He'd always had a soft spot for Caroline, but her unexpected return prompted concerns he wasn't sure he wanted answered. Caroline stood in the design studio, surrounded by sketches and fabric swatches, her gaze sharply focused as she assessed the current collection. She spent no time restoring her position, charging into work with such zeal that everyone around her struggled to keep up. But her focus was only partially on the designs. The other half was still in Bill's office, repeating their encounter, studying every word and glance. Ridge discovered her there, his expression a mixture of concern and wonder. "Caroline," he began, his voice warm and hesitant. "I didn't expect to see you back here." She looked up, offering a strained smile. "Life's full of surprises, Ridge." He took a step closer, his voice lowering. "What is going on? You did not just return to design outfits. I know you better than that." She paused, her fingers gripping a pencil. Ridge had always been kind to her, a mentor and friend. But it wasn't his fight. Let's just say I have unfinished business, she explained, her tone harsh. And I'm not leaving until it's done. Ridge's brows narrowed, but he didn't press. He knew well then to inquire when Caroline had that expression in her eyes. Just be careful, he concluded. This place has a way of drawing you in and not letting go. She nodded, but her thoughts was elsewhere. She did not need any warnings about Forrester Creations. She was familiar with its underbelly, the power struggles and betrayals that lurked under the glamour. She knew Bill Spencer was at the center of it all. Across town, Bill sat in his office at Spencer Publications, his thoughts just as busy. He had spent the night repeating Caroline's words, accusations, and fury. She wasn't wrong about him. He'd made decisions that wounded her, but he justified them at the time as necessary. But seeing her again, feeling the weight of her rage, had left him more disturbed than he wanted to acknowledge. His helper, Justin, knocked and entered with a tablet in hand. You've got a board meeting in an hour, he stated before pausing to analyze Bill's expression. Is everything okay? Bill waved him off. Fine. Justin raised an eyebrow but didn't elaborate. The word is that Caroline Spencer is back at Forrester, stirring things up. Bill's lips twisted into a half-smile. She's good at it. Justin paused, then asked, Are you sure you want to get involved in that again? She's not the same woman who departed. No, Bill replied thoughtfully. She isn't. And that's what makes this exciting. As Justin walked away, Bill leaned back in his chair, his mind already working out strategies. Caroline believed she could handle him, but she was unaware of his true potential. He had built an empire by outwitting his rivals, and Caroline, while not an adversary, posed a threat. A lovely yet terrifying threat. But there was something else too. A spark he hadn't felt in years. Caroline's challenge, the way she pushed and tested him, made him feel alive in a way he hadn't since she left. He wasn't sure if he wanted to win her over or defeat her, but one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let her leave again.